Welcome to Behind the Mask. Good morning, good afternoon and good evening. Today I would like to go over the tragic rape and murder of Libby Squire, also her mum's appeal to the government and how we can help low-level sex crimes escalating. Us women and girls want to be able to walk home alone in the dark without any fear, and I'm going to give you a few tips how to keep safe. On the 31st of January 2019, Libby was seen walking towards Welly Club at 11:18 p.m. on CCTV. The bouncers refused her entry due to being too drunk, and her friends decided to put her in a taxi by herself, and the taxi dropped her off at Wellesley Avenue at 11:29 p.m. Libby dropped her keys outside the taxi and didn't enter a house. She then stumbled towards Beverly Road. Libby walked to a bench on the corner of Hayworth Street on Beverly Road. Due to her state, a motorist stopped and offered her help. Unbeknown to Libby, Pawel Relowicz, who was 26 years old, was on the prowl looking for a victim. Relowicz spotted Libby, stalked her and watched her every move. They both disappeared through some gates and then reappeared later. He returned to his car and sat there waiting for the right opportunity to go put her in his car. Whilst getting in his car, Libby dropped a watch and then he proceeded to drive her to Oak Road playing fields. Libby's screams were heard by local residents, and Pawel Relowicz raped and murdered Libby, disposing her body in the River Hull. Her body was discovered by fishermen 7 weeks later. He then went to McDonald's and revisited the site. He was with Libby and proceeded to the top of the street where he committed indecent exposure, leaving his calling card. Finally, the police tracked down Relowicz. He was arrested in the disappearance of Libby. The police searched his house and his car. In the boot of his car, they found women's underwear, toys, photos, and a scream mask. It became quickly known to the police that he was an escalating sexual predator and a psychopath. He'd been spending 3 years stalking women, breaking into their homes, indecent exposure, stealing underwear, toys, photographs, and in all of that, he was leaving a calling card. As you can see by this mugshot, he's got a scratch under his eye too, and that was probably caused by Libby. Relowicz would commit lewd sex acts in front of women on the streets of Hull, and it didn't faze him that they saw him. He was excited by the fear he caused in women. That's what he got off on. The control, breaking into the houses, leaving his calling card. But basically, he shot himself in the foot because his DNA was everywhere. In August 2019, Relowicz faced a array of charges carried out over a 19-month period because he left his calling card at every scene. He had to admit what he'd done, so he pleaded guilty and he was sentenced to 8.5 years for voyeurism, indecent exposure and burglary. Meanwhile, the detectives on Libby's case was waiting for the forensics to come through. Finally, in February 2021, he was sentenced to 27 years minimum in prison. Libby's mum, Lisasquire, is meeting up with the government in a couple of weeks' time. She wants a change in the law. She wants tougher sentences for low-level sex crimes that escalate, and she wants life sentences to mean life. Wayne Cousins, who raped and killed Sarah Everard, he was a police officer, so the sentencing would be a little bit more harsher, but it shouldn't be. It should be the same sentence. Life should mean life, and he got a life term. Relowicz got a minimum of 27 years. They should all get the same. Life for a life. So we have to think, how can we prevent this sort of thing from happening? Well, usually with predators like Relowicz, cousins, their crimes escalate and they start from somewhere, and it's usually indecent exposure, voyeurism, stalking. This is why it's so important to report these low-level sex crimes, because they do escalate. You may be on a night out with the girls, you see this creepy dude and he exposes himself, and you'll be laughing it off with your friends and think, oh, that's so funny. And next day you wake up and you think, oh, can you remember that dude who exposed himself to us? And you're like, yeah, he's so freaky. And it goes unreported. But the next person he meets, it might be a young girl on her own, and the worst case scenario happens. I'll tell you a personal story. When I was 15, I've been to dentist with my dad and my friend, and I said to my dad, can you drop us off at the park? And he was like, yeah, no problem. It was real early in the morning, and we sat on the park bench, and this guy comes up on a push bike and he says, could I have a light please? And being a naughty teenager and smoking, I gave him a light. And me and my friend started talking, and I looked at him. I was like, oh God. And I looked at my friend, I said, look. And he was exposing himself, committing a lewd sex act. Being the way I was then, I had a nervous giggle, and I started laughing my head off, and I was running, and I got to the corner of the park, looked behind me, thinking my friend would be there. She wasn't. She was still sat on the bench, taking in his tattoos, what bike he was wearing, he was on, what he was wearing. I'm like, come on, and she ran, and was both laughing our heads off, but we reported him. And it needs to be done. It needs to be reported. Now this guy, I don't know what happened to him, whether he went on to commit harsher crimes, but it was scary, and that's what they like. They like the fear, the element of surprise and shock factor. They get excited by that. The chances are this man's, call him a man, his cowards, crimes escalated, you can guarantee it. These people committing low-level sex crimes need harsher sentences and therapy, so to prevent them going on and raping and murdering other women. So what can we do to keep safe? Well, basically, if you feel like somebody's following you and you're walking alone at night, get to the nearest shop, pub, walk in there, see if the guy hangs around, and report it to the shop worker. If you're in your car and you feel like somebody's following you, drive to the nearest police station and they'll soon disappear. If you're with your friends, don't leave your friends. Just stay together in a group. It shouldn't happen. We should be able to walk alone at night or go wherever we want, but it happens. The most important thing is to report it. Get as much detail as you can and report these people. I want to say a massive thank you to all my subscribers. Everybody's liked my videos, so like, subscribe, and stay safe. And don't have nightmares.